Hello, everyone. Welcome to our interview series, Counterattack, featuring the struggles of the people against US-led war and militarism, a narrative that is often left out of Western media. I'm Victor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rhonda Ramiro. We're representing the Resist US-led War Movement Global Secretariat. Resist is an international network of pro-peace and anti-war organizations united under two principles. One, of resisting US-led war, and second one, building just peace. We have the honor to have our fourth guest on the Counterattack series, Adison, a writer and member of several anti-imperialist organizations in South Sudan, one of which is the South Sudan Communist Party. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us, Adison. So, to start us off, I just wanted to ask you to introduce yourself a little bit more and also the work that you do with your organizations, such as the South Sudan Communist Party, but also many others that you're with. And yeah, a little bit about the history and current presence of those organizations in South Sudan. I'll give you the word. Thank you so much for being here again.
Okay, first of all, I'm glad to be here. Thank the Resist Lead War organization for this chance. I'm Adison Joseph, a writer, an activist also, a member of civil uh, many organizations. Some of them are Pan-African ones, some of them are communist and socialist, and one of them is the Communist Party. The work mostly I do in those organizations, that's with media, writing, and this educative part also, and engage in the activity of like introducing the idea of the political line and so forth, like educate the massive about the line, about the economic, the political, and cultural and different issues related with the anti-imperialism perspective and how to look in the issue of South Sudan, also the region, East Africa and Africa at large, because I'm also part of many Pan-African organizations, and also Global South as well, because also the struggle of Africa, the South Sudanese is a part of the struggle of the Global South to our country to achieve full independence and sovereignty of the economy.
Thank you so much. We're really honored to have you on our podcast today. Maybe we'll get started with our interview. So we are now in our fourth year of the current war in Sudan, in what some have described as the largest war on the African continent, and as we all know, a really horrific genocide. Some are estimating there have been over 150,000 people who have been killed or have died. Some other estimates are upwards of 400,000 or more people. But we know this crisis didn't happen overnight. So we need to have the long view and understand the history that led up to this point. So we wanted to ask you, how do the histories of Sudan and South Sudan, and particularly the 2011 separation of the countries after decades of North and South civil war, how did that directly shape what is happening today, today's conditions and politics? And how does the legacy of power sharing failures and the marginalization of regions like Darfur and other unresolved issues from the separation lead us to the current military power struggle?
Okay, to understand the situation now, we need to go back to the history a bit so we can understand what took place is related to what happened in the past. Sudan and South Sudan, Sudan was a British colony, and the South Sudan was a part of that British colony of the Sudan as a region. We know that British colonial legacy is divide and rule. So what the British did is like because the British came to Sudan to get the raw materials which they needed for Lancashire factory in England. So they construct a Jazeera scheme for cotton. So they construct all the development project alongside of West Central Sudan and North Sudan. The most of development. The area like South Sudan was marginated, as has low development projects isolated among from the other Sudan by the policies. And that policies actually had it is other part of because the North and South are actually the people in Central Sudan and North Sudan, majority of them are Arab and Muslim, and the most people in South Sudan are African roots, and some of them are Christian. So that is make the issue of religion and identity come out, but that was not a case. It was as a factor of the conflict, but in the because the mainstream media or the mainstream academician has taken that as the main problem. But that was not the problem. But the problem is that Sudan, the British has created unequal development in Sudan, which is some of the area which are more developed and has the political power and the resources and other area. Uh, so when the British left, because they have created its development or small economic or the sector of the economic which is linked the capitalist economic, especially the one in North and Central Sudan, while the other area was not. So that one lead that is the power and resource of the Sudan concentrated in one area, and the elite was ruled the Sudan after the British left, who controlled them from the same area, and they unfortunately the Comprador elite who mainly came from North Sudan, they continue the same policy of the British of neglecting or organizing the other area of Sudan, like South Sudan. And that is what create the people or the forces of the political forces in South Sudan rebelled against that in terms of the military forms. Like we had in South like two military force rebel against the center government in Khartoum, like the one of Anyanya and the other one of SPLM. That is the, like you can see, this is a small brief about what happened in the past, so which is related to that. But some of people actually they got concerned about what the issue of the Southern question, what was known in the Sudan literature or Sudan, that is what called Southern question. What is the problem of South Sudan? The South Sudan problem was actually a basis of the materials operation, which is that the Southern Sudan has not, they didn't have a chance to have a system to manage the affair. In economics, they have less chances for the service like health and development and other things. It also has some part of culture because they don't have their culture, which is are not representative in the education system or in the media. So that is also the culture was one of the factors of the southern problem question. Despite sometimes it has take more voice than the other one. During that time, there was two attempts for the peace agreement. There is one was in 72, was called Addis Ababa Peace Agreement, which is between the government of Sudan by then and the rule of Nimeri and the form also the military, the rebel movement, which is based on Southern Mosanyanya, and that peace agreement continued from 1972 up to 1983, when that is when the peace has collapsed, and another movement came out, SPLM, the National Liberation which is look like again and again is the government of Sudan. And the war continued up to 2005 when the peace agreement signed between the SPLM and the government of Sudan by the lead by the Bashir, the National Congress Party, which was called Muslim Brotherhood and Islamic Front. They keep changing. They used to keep changing their name, different. But the last one before they kick out from the power was called the National Congress Party. So the peace agreement of Inifasha 2005 has given provision, which is give South Sudan and anatomy, which is gives like to rule South Sudan rules itself, has their own government, has their own legislative assembly, and that is transition forward ended in 6 years, which is going to be followed by the referendum. So referendum, so South has to choose between two. It's either to be in the United Sudan or separate, establish their own country. And also the provision of the peace agreement is the oil field, which was discovered by 1999. In most of the region, which is most of the oil field was based in Sudan, in South Sudan region. So the Bashir or the National Congress have created how have used some of the militias who are from the area of the oil producing to control the area and give them power, to share the power according to the surface of control in that area. So the peace agreement has given the share of the oil to 50-50, 50 for North, the government of Central Sudan, and 50% for the government of South Sudan, which is led by the SPLM. Actually, the CBA, which is the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, which is known by Nifasha Agreement, they call it, actually put the foundation of what happened today. They also don't know that is from the anti-imperialist perspective also. The CBA was supported by Troika. Troika, that is US, UK, and Norway. The zone actually is who support and fund the peace agreement after what was called the Bush. The American was leading the war against the Tuareg in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. And by the Troika themselves, they fund the region Intergovernment Authority Development (IGAT). They give them the fund to implement that peace agreement, but the master plan of that peace agreement was Norway. That peace agreement has led to some of the mistake or some of the problem of the mass which is happening now, because it gives the political power and resource to the people who own the gun. Especially when you have a gun, you will get more political power and resource in the country, whatever you have a gun. And they explain all the political party or the political force in North Sudan and South Sudan from the peace agreement. The people who have negotiation, the only people who have gun, who has more power. So, and that approach actually led to the strength of the dictatorship in North Sudan, the one of National Congress Party, the Bashir, and established new dictatorship in South Sudan, which is led by the SPLM, which is led by now the Salva Kiir. So we become half a country which is controlled by the people who have more arms and more guns, and they're sharing the resource among them according to the people who have more guns. So when the peace agreement also the referendum took place 2011 happened, and then the people of South Sudan chosen to be an independent country, which has led to Sudan to split to two countries, like one in North and one in South. But now, after the referendum and declaration of South Sudan as an independent country, we found that we're in now the country is divided to two, but in actual sense, it is one system. It's working in the two countries, but it's the same system, which is make so many similarity between the two states, but actually it's one system. The similarity which is made that is to understand the war. Just let me go a bit about how similarity is between the Sudan and South Sudan after 2011. One of them is the economic was based on extraction of the resource, especially the mining, the oil. South Sudan economic was depending of oil. And Sudan was oil by then. When the South Sudan got independent, they lost the major income, and then they went for the gold. And as the issue is fragmentation of the state is very fragile and depending of the sectarian on tribal region uh, identity and tend to be as a basic of distribution of power and resources. Like both of them, Sudan and South Sudan, they use the same methods of controlling the divide people along tribal region, sectarian identity, and give the power for the people according to that. Whatever you are in area, how many people are fighting, how many troops, how many militia in your area, and which resource do you have in your area, it determine how many people are going to be in the power. Most of them, Sudan and South Sudan, they use the same policy. They also they have a puppet regime. Both of them are very linked to the region actor with the imperialist power in the region. In Sudan, by then, the National Congress Party, they divided. Some of them were allied to Qatar and Turkish, and some of them were allied to Egypt and UAE and Saudi Arabia. In South Sudan, the regime of SPLM, many of the elite were allied to Uganda, some of them allied to Ethiopia. So they become controlling by the region proxy or the region agent of the imperialism in the region, both of them. So when you understand the problem of what the war happened in Sudan 2013, South Sudan 2013, Uganda was supporting one of the President Kiir, and the other forces were supporting by either like Ethiopia and Kenya, so supporting other forces. In Sudan, to understand the problem of Sudan now also, after the revolution took place, 2019, the uprising, the popular uprising, actually the elite of the civil forces, the freedom and change, they made compromise with the military, which is the SAF and RSF now. And both of them, they were allied to especially the leader of RSF and SAF, which is allied to Egypt and Saudi Arabia and EU. Now the CAM, which was allied to Qatar and Turkish, they are not there in that formation, in that compromise. Now the CAM of Egypt and EU and Saudi had took control of all Sudan. So this is actually it. You can well that lead to that is we have a problem of the Sudan. The two Sudan have become two countries, but actually the same system which is running the same different actor, different region actor who are control the both countries. Those actors, when you come to the imperialism network, all serve to the U.S., to the Washington. But Washington sometimes they find difficult for them to run each country by individual, but they create their own the region. They create the agents in each region. Those agents are the one controlling those country in the region. They will not come by themselves to each country. So the Sudan and South Sudan, they become managing by the region actor. not the American directly. That is could be the history of the conflict to understand the conflict which is taking place now.
Thank you so much for this panorama of the situation from the British colonization to now. I think it's we're really starting to understand already the nature of proxy and puppetry that this war has, and it's often not talked about, and just talked about as a quote unquote civil war. But yeah, I think it was really great that you were able to give us this historical background. And you were getting into it, but we would really like to also understand if you can describe a little bit where the war is at this moment in Sudan, the level of devastation in this past 4 years, but also in the past few weeks, months, and year. What are, yeah, the developments, most significant developments, and then also what is the situation on the ground?
Yeah, to understand the situation, we have to look at. Yeah, I want to link it to what to the previous what I've said now. That is, the war happened in Sudan because the calm of Egypt and Saudi Arabia and AU have also have disagreement of how to manage the Sudan. Who will take the more cake? And because most of them they use the Sudan as handicraft. So actually the war happened like when it comes to the question of the forces, we can explain more about that. But the situation now, like in Sudan, I think that the SAF, or the army, have taken control of the Khartoum, the capital city, and Jazeera, which is controlled by RSF. And RSF now control the majority of the whole of Darfur region. The fighting now is in the Kordofan, especially the North Kordofan and South Kordofan, and the other areas called Blue Nile, which is still also yeah, like fighting. There is attempts of peace, reaching the peace by the regional actor like IGAD, like Arab League, but I think sometimes Trump promised that this is going to solve the problem of Sudan. But the issue is in Sudan, which is like the main mainstream media they don't talk about. That is the regional American agents in the region are the one who fight war, disagree, especially Saudi and Emirates are fighting amongst them. And both of them are allies to Trump administration of US. So if they don't agree, both of them, the peace in Sudan won't. But they will at the time in Berlin, they hold the talk. Now, recently, last week was in Addis Ababa. Some of the political parties and civil organizations they met in Addis Ababa to discuss how to call for end of the war, which was facilitated by Quentin. Quentin is comprised by African Union, Intergovernmental Authority, IGAD, Arab League, and Arab Union, European Union, and United Nations, which facilitated that talk. But the both party was not in that talk, like some of the civilian political parties were there. And before that, there was also a meeting in Berlin in the same issue. But that is going to lead us that there is a problem of peace mobility, which is actually make the war is continuing in Sudan or in South Sudan. We can generalize the both because the Brazilian news that is like what we need to like what they do is to create the structure which is made the war, and then to control the war they have to arm the both parties and then pretending that you're going to what you're going to work for peace, and then you make a peace agreement which is based on accommodating the both parties. And the both party, of course, they have to their interest to continue fighting, or to interest to have to still managing the resource, to still having political power, and that is where the cycle of the crisis continue, because the seat who is will be president, there is one seat. So the tendency of the competition for political power is going to be continue among those people, and each of the group getting support for particular country. So they will keep fighting for someone who to take the cake. So when the problem happens, they will call them together and you sit and share the power. They share the power, they get more money, they get more power, they could more people, and then they start fighting again. The cycle of the crisis continues. That is what's been happening in South Sudan, and now I think it's going to be continuing in Sudan like that.
Thank you, Addison. Yeah, it makes us think. So this is definitely a recurring cycle because, like you said, the parties involved really have no interest in resolving the war. They're making money. They're, stealing the oil. They're stealing the minerals that they're mining. So they have an interest in it, and it's definitely not in the interest of the people. I think it's clearly important for us to know, this war is like portrayed as a civil war and fighting between SAF, the Sudanese Armed Forces on one side, and RSF, or the Rapid Support Forces, on the other. But like you said, there are other, foreign agents and puppets of imperialism and imperialist countries themselves that really have an interest in keeping the war going. They're supplying and financing the arms. They're providing political and moral support to each side, sometimes both sides. Can you tell us a little bit more about the different forces that are involved, and then specifically about the foreign powers that are using Sudan as their own, battlefield? What are their strategic interests in the area, in the countries, and what are the resources that they're trying to keep for themselves? Are they after gold, or are they after ports, regional influence? How are these really fueling this conflict?
Okay, the forces are involved. We can say SAP, but SAP is compromised. Like first is including like it's actually is a war. Is the war, or you can say it's a conflict among the elite between them, the one who are in the top fighting among themselves. The SAF represented the all local capitalist order. It's the right-wing parties, especially the Islamic one, and the top general in the army, who are actually managing doing business, using the power to get business, and backed with some countries like Saudi Arabia, like Egypt, because they work as intermediate for exporting the raw resource of Sudan to those countries like meat and animal resource and so forth. Also the oil, the gold. So this is one group. The other group is RSF, which is the leader of those militias, so actually backed by UA. The work is they used to work for Egypt, for EU, in the war in Yemen, in the war in Libya. They work like the machineries. They smuggling the gold also to AU. So like SAF has become a project of AU. RSF, I mean, the Rapid Force, become a project and backed by Israel, of course, because AU is representative there, the Israel in the region, and special obtaining. So they arm them. So that is, I think those are main forces which are involved in power, and that is the imperialism network which are connected with in terms of smuggling the resources. And in order for that, they bring for them weapons to continue fighting. And they have, of course, they have interest. That is the interest to have to continue do it in Sudan, which is make like there is a competition between those two forces to who will control the seat, who will take the whole cake and take it to the own to the one who are top, the one are working for, and that is in the end look to it take us to Washington.
And then I think beyond the forces directly fighting between them, like you mentioned, the RSF um, and the SAF, we also have these multilateral institutions that sometimes are led by the US, sometimes not, but like the UN and the African Union, which have tried to intervene or, as they say, resolve the humanitarian crisis and the situation in Sudan, or even alleviate it, but have failed to do so. And if you have an analysis on why that happened, why they weren't able to alleviate or resolve the situation.
Okay, I think the question we can combine here the answer in both Sudan and South Sudan. We can start from the 2005 peace agreement, and then the Sudan split into country, and 2013 the war happened in South Sudan, and there is a peace agreement being signed in 2015, and the war erupted again 2016, and 2018 there was a peace agreement was signed again. In Sudan, the war was while there was a peace agreement in South Sudan, was South Sudan, but the war in Darfur continued up until 2000, since 2003. And 2011, the war erupted in Blue Nile and Nuba Mountains. There was also a time for reaching peace agreement in Sudan. 2013 was Qatar, and the 2019 was, 2020 it was Juba agreement to solve the problem in Sudan, especially in the north in Darfur, Blue Nile, and yeah, that's majorly Darfur. And the funny thing is, Sudan and South Sudan in 2019, 2020, they host both peace agreement of each country, and both of them are suffering from the same problem. But in that those peace agreement, most of them are actually sponsored by IGAD, the region, the imperialism region actor in the. But the problem of those peace agreements is focusing on accommodate those people who have more guns into the power, not addressing the cause of why people are fighting, why there is a problem of underdevelopment, why there is political representation. So they don't fight that is why there is a lack of social development uh, projects, which has made the people suffer. People have less access to education, like to health service. The peace agreement, they don't look at those factors to solve it. They look at the problem of the elite, the people who are in top, who are actually use the resources to reach the top and then enjoying reaching the power and then enjoying drinking from the budget from the national income and then enjoy it by among themselves, but they leave the poor people alone. So that will mean the continuation of the problem, But those elite, they do that because they have to let the people to be stay poor, so they can use them in recruit them to the war, and keep the interest or keep the benefit of the fruit of the peace agreement between them alone. And actually, that is I become international because when there any problem, the US and the world that is the most party should sit and agree and reach the peace and make power sharing. So that is the only thing, the only solution which is provided is power sharing. And power sharing, it made the circle of the violence be continued because power sharing, you cannot bring the two parties who actually their interest is to be in the political power, and you tell them you come and go and solve the problem. They will not solve. They will just divide the power. They share the seats among themselves and share the resources among themselves, and then they will not solve any problem. That's why those war or those or continue to happen because it actually is not a failing of the war, it's failing actually of the modality of the intervention, which is led by IGAD, led by Qatar, which is actually in the end run by US or Troika, the UK and Norway. Those are the one who sponsor those peace talks. So those are the one who sponsor those mediation for power sharing power as the only solution for the problem. So here you can actually make the cat to continue protect the milk, but the cows also drink the milk, but they will continue let the cat to protect the milk. And it's actually shortly, but the cat is you will drink the milk, and no one is. I think that's what the problem is. The problem of war, it is, yeah, the causes which is let the war happen, but also the modality of the peace intervention also is failing, and it's continue failing, and they're still repeating the same mistake again and again and again. Now we are still, so that is why so in Sudan and South Sudan, we still been having wars, and we still having this period of like this situation of endless war. War cannot end. War, peace agreement.
Yeah. Yeah, and we really agree with you. I mean, part of what our manifesto for Resist US-led War movement says is that we not only need to resist war, but we actually have to fight for a just peace. And we can't have a peace agreement that's just about power sharing unless what we need to do is resolve the roots of the conflict. Why is there poverty and the oppression of the people in the first place? And if we don't resolve that, and it sounds like you've described in these different negotiations or even peace agreements, it doesn't address the roots. It doesn't address why there is fighting over resources in the first place. So, I think what we want to hear more about is how are the people resisting? You're part of anti-imperialist organizations that are, looking at really resolving the roots of the armed conflict and the war. So, can you tell us a little bit more about how the people are resisting, how at the grassroots level communities are organizing themselves, whether it's through mutual aid or neighborhood committees, underground networks, in order to survive and resist this war? And then also, what can people outside of Sudan and South Sudan do to be in solidarity with the people?
Yeah, I'm actually one of the like when I was growing up, the war was still in between Sudan and North Sudan. I was in Khartoum by then, 19 something. We used to be in the movement, especially the student movement. The war was still going on, but people used to survive this war situation, moved to the area which has safe because when I grown up, there was war which was about to reach our area, so we had our family had to move to the center of the capital city in Sudan. Uh, so the Sudanese people in north and in south and north, they have long history of how to resist the war and how to fight to be survive, to be alive during the wartime by changing moving to the safety place, adapting with, learning new things to earn a living, and all those things that is make the people are resisting the war. But in like well, actually the Sudanese people from north or south, most of them are based on the extended families, which is have a long route of the solidarity or the support, the social support or the social solidarity support, which is make the people are moving together. People, the one which is have, especially the traditional methods of the solidarity, uh, the social support, which is from the family, from the clan, which is helping each other to give them food, to give them money, to can survive. But I can observe in this war, in Sudan especially, there is a thing which have been changed. That is that a long history of the traditional social support has started to be organized. But they used to be like not organized. They used to be just family, just friends. How to they maintain themselves and they maintain their families and supporting each other and getting support from people who are working outside and learning the new methods of getting incomes and changing even their career to survive. Uh, but now I think we can observe from the Sudan, there is a new movement of the social solidarities, which is being built, especially bottom-up organizational grassroots. The resistance committee was played role in the revolution, but some of the members of the resistance committee during the war in Sudan have have turned to come out with something called emergency response rooms, which is neighborhood in the same area, helping the people who are affected by war, who has lost the source of income and work, helping them in food, like cooking, they make them like community cooking, community kitchen. She cook for the whole area and come and then them during the meal time, and also making the health facility working by providing some equipment, some medical equipment, and the health card in Russia well has the health staff in that particular place gives them the tools to and equipment to work. So the people can get the health service which is they need. And that is, I think, one of the because that thing is rooted that the people who actually are there for a long time being in those traditional methods of helping each other. Because it's not like Sudan and South Sudan are not individual, they're a collective society. People live together as a family, as a community who are staying in the same area, the community who stay in the region, in the city, in the village. So they stay together and they start sharing the little resources which they have together. So that long history or rooted of traditional of the social solidarity among themselves is turned to be more organizing through that particular time of the war, of this time of war.
Around the question of how people can show solidarity also to the people that, like you said, are resisting and are enduring such devastating conditions collectively from a standpoint of, yeah, cultural resistance and also now organizing. Um, is there any points that you want to bring up around how people can support internationally?
Okay, let me start with Sudan and then come last with South Sudan. The solidarity with Sudanese people by supporting the demand to be suffering to be end from this war, which is caused by this war, and also it's like a struggle to support the struggle of those organizations, grassroots organizations, to have the country, which is their own destiny, to decide their own sovereignty, and also the international solidarity needed to tell the to solve those proxy region or the imperialist agent in the region to stop feeling this war, to stop arming. And I'm glad that there was campaign going on about the role of AU in Sudan. I think that is already which is the Sudanese people did it. That is and in terms of peace for them to reach the support because the Sudanese communities have like a history of how to manage the affair peacefully and so the support the local initiative region to reach the peace agreement, which is a peace which is uh, rusted or got it from the Sudanese by themselves who can come and reach to the common ground and find peace among themselves. Not that peace which is like supported by the power, the imperialism network of power in the region, which is actually focus of the interest in achieving peace, not the achieving peace which is related to the people. And the peace which is make the Sudanese people to be united, to solve the problems. The peace which is make the like what I've said that is the people take their own sovereignty, their own destinies to achieve democracy, to achieve development of the like for the people. So that is, I think, that is what the solidarity wishes the Sudanese or the grassroots organization of the progressive movement they needed from the international solidarity. In South Sudan, also the solidarity needed. The people been suffering in South Sudan, been suffering from the war a long time ago, and the country is now facing the most worst economic crisis, which is even the civil servant taking now more than 1 year without getting a salary, and the price of the goods increasing day by day, and the country is actually in miss. So the people of South Sudan also they need the solidarity. But the people to South Sudan has to enjoy peace which is related to development, the peace which is made the purpose of the people of South Sudan to enjoy their country without intervening forces which is extracting like in the because South Sudan also suffering from the same problem of Sudan that in the region like Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, and those are actually is engaging in this process of smuggling the resource of South Sudan. And the resource of South Sudan are not enjoyed by the people of South Sudan, a small group in the power, linking to this region, Cambradoro, enjoying those business. So the solidarity of South Sudan needed for the people of South Sudan to enjoy peace, which is related to the development, related development that is related to the people who are enjoy the resources for the benefit of the people of South Sudan.
Thank you so much, Addison. We really appreciate you joining us here for this interview on our podcast. I just want to echo for our listeners and our viewers that we need to stand in solidarity and take action in solidarity with the peoples of Sudan and South Sudan, be in solidarity with their call for self-determination, that they need to be and they deserve to be. They have the right to control their own destinies, without interference by foreign powers. And for the people of South Sudan, solidarity with their call to also be able to chart their own course of development, genuine development for the people, and not by foreign actors or agents of imperialism, and also not for compradors, as I believe Addison also said, for the people themselves. So thank you so much. To learn more, we're definitely going to be continuing to follow the developments in Sudan and South Sudan. If we have questions, we may also call back Addison for another follow-up interview. But we invite our listeners and viewers to learn more and to monitor developments on our website, where we will post statements, and you can also find more information in our anti-militarism agenda, where we have some background history and current calls to action. Find us at www.resistusled-warmovement.com. Thank you so much, Addison, and thank you all who have joined us for our podcast today.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, thank you.
Long live international solidarity.
Yeah, long live.